Good evening. I'm Silox, and on this joyous yet somber Tuesday evening, June 9th, 2020, we are here at Furry Frequencies to bring you this important and hopefully intelligent discussion on race in the fandom. Before I begin, I would like everyone to introduce themselves.
Hello, everybody. I'm Lifty. You already recognize me because I'm one of the three hosts of Furry Frequencies. And so you mostly know who I am. And here I am going to be just like a neutral party to this roundtable discussion. This is the very first time we've done something like this where we had multiple guests like this, all talking about a single topic. So hopefully all goes well.
I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. It's IBM. You know me as well. One of the three hosts that we typically have on this little show of ours. I'm probably not going to have much to add, but I will try to add as much as I possibly can. This topic is usually something that I try to shy away from because I think it's just crazy that we have these kinds of battles in the first place. We all are human beings, in my belief. So, but typically I'm kind of an asshole, so I might say something very mean to the people who are very insensitive out there. But moving on, go at the top of the list.
Okay, so hello, I'm Dylan Strategy. I'm a French person. I'm part of a fandom, but in some circles, I think a lot of people know me already. I guess I'll be somewhat of a neutral party. Obviously, I'm not that aware of what's going on in the US outside of what I see on the news and in discussions, but I'm well aware of what happened with a certain person that will be talked about it. Sure.
I'm happy, and I'm happy to be here.
I'm sleepy.
Oh, sleepy. Okay, go ahead.
That's it.
Hi, my name is Dialuca. I've been a member of this community for a long time, seen a lot of things, try to help out a lot of people with everything. I've been seeing what's been going on lately, and it can be absolutely ghastly, especially given how I just see everyone as equally as I can and try to help them out. So I guess that's why we're here tonight, to talk about these things and get down to some of the issues that a lot of us have been thinking about and talking about as of late. How's that?
That's fine. All right. So that was a great introduction. It's great to meet everybody. A bunch of diverse voices representing this entire fandom. Moving on, I do want to bring up an unfortunate incident that just highlights, even though this fandom claims to be tolerant and open, we are still filled with hatred and vile people. Last week, a man by the name of Aries Bat was mentioned in several chat logs, along with someone else, that depict him saying extremely grotesque, foul, racist, transphobic comments that, quite frankly, I don't think I've ever heard anyone use before. When I read the transcripts, I was personally offended and left stunned that someone who I thought was at the very least, an upstanding member of society, would even stoop that far to say. And his comments on George Floyd, in particular, were really stunning and heartbreaking. And then he had the gall to make an apology that came across as only being sorry because he got caught, not because he was sorry for his racism, his rampant transphobia, his xenophobic views, but because he got caught. Still, some members of the fandom, even the macro community, one in particular who is extremely popular and runs a convention, whose name I will not say, stuck up for him. He stuck up for him. And this person was proven to be a fool 2 days later. Not even 2 days later. I guess I guess 24 hours
8
later.
hours.
Yeah, when further screenshots surfaced of him rejoining the same server on Discord. So, people like Aries Bat are everything that is wrong with the furry fandom. They are ignorant, they're arrogant, they're sheltered individuals, and he was red pilled. The guy became red pilled, to my knowledge, in 2018. For those of you who do not know what red pilling is, I suggest you look it up. It has its origins from The Matrix, when Morpheus presents Neo with a red and blue pill. That's where that comes from. So, and he wasn't the only one. I mean, this week we had a guy called, what's his name? SR Beta Tyson. I can never remember his name, but he showed himself to be a complete asshole for everybody to see out in the world. So, what do you all make of this? Because clearly it isn't an isolated event. Would you say that this fandom has a race problem, or is it just an isolated event? Are people running hot? Are people just giving hot takes to give hot takes to be edgy? What do you all think?
Well, as I told a friend whenever I heard about this, the fandom is kind of a snapshot of society as a whole. So you're going to get a lot of people with a lot of different views, and not all of those views are going to be particularly savory. Some of the people are going to have some really terrible things to say, just because that's the way people are sometimes.
I honestly think that it's this whole issue is because it took the nation by storm, the world by storm. Honestly, you see this crap everywhere. It just seems to be a fad for some people. While there are some big supporters on change and making sure that equality is spread, which I support, there's nothing worse out there than racism and just being fucking totally ignorant to people's cultures. It's stupid. The fuck would you do that for? But for you to also join in the fray because you think it's cool because everyone else is doing it and you have no fucking idea why you're out there, putting yourself out there like a dumb fuck. Misguided little fool. Go back home. This is how I feel about these dumb fucks that decide that they want to have their voice heard when they have no clue what they're talking about. Okay? There's no sense in someone going out and protesting if they don't actually believe in change. They just want to go out and be part of the fun, part of the party. Go out, loot, pillage, steal, and destroy. That's the kind of shit that we're seeing. There's a lot of people that are trying their hardest to fit in with everyone, and because it's a big deal, they want to be part of that. That's how I see it. And I really wish that people would fucking grow up and be adults about things. This is a tragedy. This is horrible. Whatever is going on in people's minds to make them think that this is the proper way to handle the situation, I'm sorry. I think the human race should have died off eons ago if this is how it's going to end. Next.
Well, I think that, you certainly have a point. But I think one of the main problems here is that it's kind of revealing the dark underbelly of like society. There's these kind of tensions have been going on since the inception of America, but we periodically undergo this kind of thing where we have these movements where civil rights is kind of the centerpiece of what we're looking at. And then there's people who come out and kind of reveal their true natures and how ingrained some of these really despicable beliefs are. And I think that's kind of the core of the issue. Not so much like, I mean, obviously, rioting and stuff that is problematic in some ways. There have been some people who have had property damage and whatever, but I think the core issue, the real core issue, is this a severe inequality.
And I would also add, though, that IBM brings up a good point. There have been bad actors, bad faith actors, who have joined in on these protests. Some people have made the claim that anarchists are just joining in on the fun. Some have made the claim that Antifa has also joined in on the fun and have rioted. Some have also claimed that the Proud Boys have also joined in on the fun in an attempt to make the movement look bad. I don't know what to believe. There is a lot of information out there to decipher and pour over, but I would say that by and large, most people who do want to see change are out there because they want to see change. But there are people out there who want to live out this sick, twisted fantasy of complete and total anarchy. Let's rob and pillage stores because it's fun, and oh, daddy's money will get me off of any charge that comes my way. Those people are a problem. And there have been videos of people giving protesters bricks. Have been people breaking into stores with skateboards. Um, that's a problem, and those people aren't really in it for the real reason why this movement started. Um, though I will say that it's
Let's try to bring it back to Eris for a bit.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
think
like
we
we were
moved on
getting
a
way off
little too
topic.
quickly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Alex, you mentioned you asked if we have a problem with the fandom, and what I'm seeing is that having made a good point that all of these views that Eris espouses, they're views that people have had, but given that the uh, the view of the fandom basically just wants everybody to show that it is welcoming and accepting and open. Of course, these views are going to run very counter to all of that. And seeing or being seen espousing these views will likely cause a massive backlash, which it did. And so a lot of people, they still hold these sentiments, but they hold them very hidden. They don't actually spread these views around. They haven't for a while. I know that there are racists in the fandom. I mean, we know of one that lives very near to us, and he's still a racist. He's still a transphobe. I'm not going to say his name because that would give him power. I'm just going to mention him, that he's still there.
it's funny you say that because he also is weirdly against cops and all this. So I have to wonder what is his mental thinking right now when he posts a cab and we should shoot cops. And
If I may interject, I do have a little snippet that I want to share with you guys about the whole ACAB thing. But we'll move on from that, and we'll come to that when we get to it.
oh, sure. Um, but that person must do a lot of mental gymnastics in order to have something like that in his profile, given that he's also a racist. And probably doesn't exactly support the Black Lives Matter movement. So he's also one of those bad faith actors that I'm talking about, who are only in it for personal reasons and not the whole goal itself. But to bring it back to the fandom real quick, I will say maybe me personally, I was a bit ignorant to assume that the fandom was very tolerant and accepting. I made my own mistake by assuming that Twitter was an analog for society in general. I mean, it's not. Twitter is curated a certain way where you see people who agree with you. If you tailor your settings right, favorite the right things, retweet the right things. And so perhaps I was a bit deluded into thinking that this fandom didn't have an issue. That compared to the Brony fandom, and I'm sorry, Lifty, that it was way more tolerant, way more diverse, and the people were more accepting. And so I will admit that I made a bad mistake in thinking that.
When you say accepting, you mean accepting of extremist viewpoints?
Accepting of people regardless of their race, origin, nationality, things like that.
So you would say sorry, just to make sure I'm understanding, you would say the Brony fandom is more accepting.
No, the Brony fandom is actually way less diverse, and from what I encountered while in there, mind you, this is a personal anecdote.
What year, by the way?
This was, I would say, I was active from 2010 to 2015.
I
So
can interject. I do have a picture from like yesterday or today that shows that things in the Brownies fandom are not really good right now in terms of tolerance. I can forward it into the voice chat channel.
that's fine. But to wrap the Brony thing up, no, what I was saying is when I initially joined the furry fandom, I felt that it was more diverse than what I had known with Bronies, which tend to not be as diverse and to be more straight, white male, that kind of thing. Not a lot of people there look like me. Not a lot of people there are gay. I mean, it's compared to furries. And that's not a knock on them, but it's just the facts. With the furry fandom, it's like a microcosm of America in terms of what you see. And I may have thought that, okay, since it's like, you know, a it's more tolerant from what I've seen, that there wouldn't be this issue. And perhaps I was wrong about that.
If I can, maybe I can give my opinion here.
Go for it.
Yeah. So starting mostly from the beginning with the case with Tyrese, I mean, honestly, it was a surprise to everyone because he was hosting a really big chat that had a lot of obviously very tolerant people in it. It was a really vibrant community. And, all of a sudden, I mean, he was an absentee host, so it wasn't like he was interacting a lot. And all of a sudden, one afternoon, it was afternoon for me, it was morning for others, we learned that, he said all those things. And it's not even over years. It was like a few weeks ago. It was all about the protest. Some extremely bad things that show that he's radicalized a bit beyond help, as is proven since. From basically just ignoring everyone calling Martin, rezoning his polls. And yeah, that was really, really shocking, honestly. And to talk about him and what he's done, really, the thing that concerned me the most is not that he has edgy views. I see that sometimes, but that he genuinely believes it and he deludes himself to it. Like he said he was joking. And the worst thing is, I think he believes that genuinely, that all the very hurtful and terrible things he said were jokes between friends. And yeah, that really, really shows just how low you can fall when you're left in those circles. Like, I don't know when it began or what got him to join, but he's really, really deep in now. And the fact that he thinks that basically anyone who's not just white and male needs to be restrained or even killed sometimes is terrifying. And as far as the wider community goes, I think we're pretty tolerant, but there's a few people like that are, I wouldn't say in hiding, but that are really disguising their views. And I don't know what to think about it because at the end of the day, I think there's this parallel furry community that's starting to rise that's less tolerant. Even if there's less member, it's still pretty worrisome. I don't know if we're in a good position to suggest how we're going to fix this, but it's a pretty big problem, honestly, and it's starting to leak pretty badly into our discussions. Like, like with Iris and other people who are showing their true color all of a sudden. Yeah, I don't know we're going to tackle this, but it's something I observed recently.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. As you said, a lot of people are showing their true colors, and I guess it's almost it's a blessing and a curse because it's revealing a lot of people for who they are, which is upsetting, but it's far better to know that there are who is holding these kind of views, and I think people are feeling very emboldened to express themselves because they see other people saying it. So in a way, it's nice because we know who now to avoid.
I guess, but at the same time, like the fact they feel comfortable to reveal themselves with views that terrible, like this is borderline fascism at some point, is extremely worrisome. Like that
Oh, it's
stuff
not
would have not been
borderline.
acceptable anywhere before. Go on.
No, you said borderline fascism. I don't think it is borderline. I think it is the
It is just
definition.
fascism. Maybe I'm underestimating it a little, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just trying to avoid terms that people might contest. In all cases, there are some really disgusting views.
Oh, I agree with
So
you.
go ahead.
I was just saying I agree. That's all.
Okay. So Dialuca, what we've yet to hear your views on all of this. What do you want to say?
All right. Um, let's see. There's a lot to go over, especially with what happened with Aries, especially when, let's see, I was in the middle of doing some things at the time, then suddenly, was it when I woke up? I think it was when I woke up when everything went downhill. But basically, for both the beta thing and the Aries thing. Um, so I was gathering information as much as I could, as I typically do. I was trying to get some things. Now, I did not read the posts until later on into the day because I honestly did not have the time. But to go back, I guess a little bit, I feel like I'm probably going to be jumping around a lot with this. But let's see, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. The community itself is a place of inclusion, a place to feel safe, secure, happy with each other. The ability to create, to innovate, to experience other people's ideas, and accept people for who and what they are, without any feel of politics, religion, whatever you feel. It's basically a way to get through culture and basically experience one another. Like how we all meet each other sometimes each year, with the exception of this year due to the unprecedented events of COVID-19. And we see each other like 10,000 people, so many different groups, all that stuff. But all it takes, typically, to screw up an entire community is one event. A few years ago, I remember things such as, like, in New Jersey, something like, I think one of the mayors came out to see some sort of grand opening, and then basically there was like suitors on top of a car, and that basically dominated the news for a while, basically saying that furries are sexual deviants or something like that. To go to Aries though, and Beta, and well, not I'm not exactly lumping them exactly together. Those are two very specific different cases. But with Aries and his views, it runs counter, I think, to the community that we've built over the past 25 years, if I remember correctly. And it's even longer than 25 years, actually, probably 35 years. But basically, it runs counter to the ideas of acceptance, of love and compassion that we try to experience and build together. When the situation occurred with a very prominent member of our community, said to try to see if they can give a second chance, I will admit I said I have expressed this to Salox previously. that he could probably get a second chance, but in a very specific circumstance. The only way would be to go immediately to therapy, go to group counseling or something like that, prove that you can become a member of the community around you, such as, I don't know, like the town or the county or whatever, to better help people, to prove that you're actually actually trying to make yourself into a better person. Now, it wasn't until later that I read the posts and basically said, oh yeah, I can't forgive him for that. That is abysmal. I only got like 1/3 of the way through it. And then the post started disappearing because the link was being ripped apart. So basically, at that point, I said, yeah, this person does not deserve a second chance. For that prominent member of the community, I feel like that my experience was similar to what that prominent member of the community was feeling about trying to give a second chance, but in only very specific circumstances. I will never forgive Aries for what he has said, what he has done, and I can never understand why someone would go down that path to look through things like 4chan and then, as Silok said, take the red pill among some other factors. But it's just confusing. And the only thing that I can think of that we can do as a community to fight against that is to literally unite and come together and say, hey, this is actual shit. We should not deal with it. We should not have to see this. We should push back against it and prove to others that we are here for each other and here for those who need help. Because that's what this community is about, at least from what I see. I think I honestly went a little bit all over the place. What do you guys think?
I mean, unless one of the hosts wants to speak up, I can at least speak on the angle of his radicalization. Salox, yeah?
So just all right, but getting back on topic. No, I think you brought up some excellent points, especially about when you said how Aries got to that point. So
Mm-hmm.
So I want to.
I can still talk about that kind of stuff because I'm a bit more aware of the kind of radicalization that happens.
there unfortunately has been a lot of radicalization of males in this country, and I'll just have looked into why that's happening. I don't personally know why Aries went down that path. I don't know the guy that well. I just know that he became very reclusive and he, spoke his mind in a setting. Okay. Let me repeat that. So I don't know why Aries went down the path that he did. I just know that he became reclusive and just really withdrew from the community. And in a setting where he felt like he was comfortable and could get away with saying what he said amongst like minded individuals, he spoke what he actually felt. Personally, I would rather someone come to me and tell me straight up that, hi, I'm a bigot, I'm a racist, transphobe, homophobe. At least I know what I'm working with. With someone like him, I had to find out the hard way. And it sucks. He did a lot of good things with his artwork. His artwork was superb. He was a 3D modeler. But now I can't look at his stuff in the same way because I'm reminded of someone who has such a bigoted and hateful view of the world. And it's honestly disgusting. Um, can he redeem himself? Absolutely. Um, Humans are able to redeem themselves. They're able to change their opinions. He has time. Will I ever forgive him for that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I know some people will say, well, turn the other cheek, be the bigger man. No, I cannot forgive someone who has said what he said and made such disgusting statements like that. I hope he learns from this. And I hope he would have gotten doxxed. I would have like to see his life ruined professionally, because you don't get to make statements like that and get away scot-free. You really don't. But we can't always get what we want in life. So at the very least, I hope that he grows from this. No pun intended. But Sleepy, what is your opinion on all this? What do you think?
It's just frustrating to see people post stuff that pretty much implies that they hate you, they look down on you, and that they just don't see you as human. As a person of color, I just look at stuff on Twitter and I see all this hate, and after a while, it does kind of get to me. I do have to log off. I do have to get away from it all. I do have to see people try to speak up for me, and it's kind of a fight that we really shouldn't be having in this time, but there it is, and it's just frustrating.
It's got to be pretty upsetting for you. I imagine that's very difficult to go through.
Yeah, sadly, it seems to be a factor of the times. We've clearly seen it everywhere, and maybe that's going to be a segue into, the protests and everything's happening in real life. But yeah, people are starting to feel more and more confident to embrace such radical and terrible beliefs. We thought it was stuff that was basically out of the questions, like not even 10 years ago, but it's back. And there's more and more people who are backing it, and it's terrifying to see, really. And especially when it's in our community and you have people like this just post such disgusting racial screeds, it's really fucking upsetting. Like, even if I don't experience it personally, it's hard to see, really.
And I can speak also as a person of color. Trust me, as Sleepy said, at times it gets rough on Twitter when you see what the people say about Black lives, the the comments they make, the posts they retweet, the shit about, oh well, black people kill each other more than white people kill black people. They don't really care about Black lives. I mean, that, first of all, that is so disingenuous to what we're even talking about, what people are even in the streets about. If you want to have
That's
that,
called whataboutism, by the way.
yes, if you want to have that discussion, I'm more than happy to have that discussion, but not now. To be called less than human, to be compared to dirt on someone's heel. I've seen tweets like that from furries, people who are probably gay as fuck, by the way, and wow, it's like, okay, how are you, a gay person, gonna sit there and hate on me when you are also a minority? But I get it. I get it. It's just mind blowing that people want to say stuff like that, and it's gotten to the point where people feel so emboldened now on social media, and this isn't even just furries; it's just in general. People still feel so emboldened on social media to say the dumbest, most outlandish shit, and they sign their first and last name on it, thinking nobody will ever check to see who you are, where you live, where you work. People feel so emboldened behind a computer now, like they can do whatever they want and get away with it. And you're seeing that now in this fandom. And it hopes that, okay, we all have animal avatars. No one's really that dumb enough to put their first and last name. This isn't fucking Karen on Facebook who has her first and last name and wants to say something incredibly racist against Hispanic people. No, this is fucking Finrear927 XXX Edgelord with his fucking wolf avatar making racist statements against black people. I don't know who that
And
is.
yeah,
Okay.
if such a person exists, nothing against them.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Fenrir X6, whatever that's probably a real person. There are too many Fenrirs in the fandom. Choose a different name. But the point is, people have become so emboldened with social media.
I don't think it's I think it's worse than that. No, people are emboldened to hold these views even in real life, and you can clearly see it. Like I'm sure we all still remember the Charleston's protest. It wasn't a ton of people, but it was still like I think I don't remember the volume of it, but a lot of people who were happy to walk into the street with obviously Nazi ideology, and ended very badly, obviously. But I think it's bad enough that for real people are starting to embrace it with their real name and just owning up to it. But obviously, the anonymity of social media makes it even worse. Like you can have one real person make a statement that's obviously racist, and you'll have hundreds or thousands of people who may be real or fake just immediately jump on it and start boosting it.
One thing to add to the internet, I did find a quote in regards to the creation of the internet. The internet is the first thing that humanity has built that humanity doesn't understand. It is the largest experiment in anarchy that we have ever had.
So I wanted to, because we're talking about internet anonymity and how it emboldens people to embrace fringe ideologies and, of course, make posts about fringe ideologies. I think that's where everybody just kind of doesn't really understand what all is going on when it comes to the internet. Now, anonymity allows people to post whatever they want, because nobody's going to check who you are. When you're anonymous, you can say pretty much whatever, and this emboldens people to break out and say what's on their mind, of course. And that can be a good thing, but that can also be a very bad thing, as we've noticed. People have been talking about regulated communities. And when you have a regulated community, you can't be anonymous. You have to actually have accountability for everything you post. That's the whole part about regulated communities, is that you have to, when you post something terrible, you own up to it, and either you atone for it or you get out. You can't own up to it if it's anonymous. And that's exactly why these communities like 4chan have embraced anonymity for years, and of course have embraced extreme ideologies like National Socialism and racism and just general intolerance and just fringe ideologies.
Okay. Okay. So with that in mind, I do want to pivot to IBM. He would like to talk about the acronym ACAB and what that means to him. You have the floor, IBM.
Thank you. So, as former law enforcement in the state of Virginia and also a 911 dispatcher, I found something on the internet that actually really speaks to me. Um, there are some really rotten cops out there. We all know this. But the ignorant phrase, all cops are bastards, really, really offends people like me who know right from wrong and have only joined the force in order to do good. I know there's a lot of tension with law enforcement, and looking from the outside, from the outside looking in, it's tough to see how there's any sensitivity in law enforcement when they're geared up the way they are. It's true. It's really, really tough to see how any cop could be a good guy when they're dressed to the fucking head to toe with 9mm, ARs, anything that you can think of that they're geared out. Meanwhile, there's an unarmed citizen. But not all localities are like that. And I think that I came from a very small department that was very respectful of people's wishes. So I found something in a Facebook group that kind of looks on both perspectives. Then it kind of made me shed a tear, because this is so true. And it's actually from Sherry Nicole from the Nocturnal Dispatchers group. And she writes this. This is what I may be saying if people get their wish. The crime will not stop. So who will you call? Even those that don't like police still call me in their worst moments because they still need help. Think long and hard. 911, what's your emergency? Help, someone's in my house. They're going to kill me. Please send someone out, someone to save me. I'm sorry, I can't. All the cops are gone. What do you mean all the cops are gone? Send someone now, someone to save me. Remember the days not long ago when that's all you wanted for them to go? All cops are bastards. The only cops are dead cops. Abolish the police. You yelled this in the streets. You wanted them gone. You wanted them dead. None of them were good. That's what you said. We listened, we heard, we disbanded the police, sent them all home, called them all a disgrace. You desired this outcome, to have no more cops. Now you must lie down and sleep in this bed, the one you created by wishing all cops were dead. All I can do is tell you I'm sorry. I hope that you make it, I really do. My thoughts and prayers, those I will send, and I posted a black spot on my social media page. That's all that is left. No more men and women in blue, no one to send to help and try to save you. I'd say grab your gun, protect yourself, but you don't believe in those, so you never bought one. Perhaps you're agile, perhaps you can run, or maybe you know how to fight with your hands. Have you tried telling this person you're unarmed, your home is gun-free, and that he's not allowed inside? I'm really sorry, truly I am, but cops, cops no longer exist in this land. There are no sheepdogs to protect the sheep. Only the wolves now roam the streets. Now I must go. I have another call coming. I pray that you make it to see the morning. That, even right now, I'm getting choked up because that is something I don't want to ever have to tell a caller. I can't send you help because there's no more cops. All the police are gone. My whole life, I've been in public safety only to help people because that's all I've wanted to do. And if there ever comes a time where I cannot send an officer to help someone in need, there's really no sense in living here anymore, because it is truly heartbreaking to know that there are people out there that believe that the only way to stop this violence is to disband the police and tell them to go away. When in reality, when someone is knocking at your door at midnight, trying to bust their way in and destroy you and your family, you know exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to call 911. Lo and behold, nobody's going to come out there to save you. And that's the blatant reality that I see coming. And it actually makes me really, really upset. And I figured people really need to hear that, because this dispatcher, she wrote this with such emotion because she knows that's coming to her community soon. She's a dispatcher in Chicago. And they're very close to actually voting on the very same thing, getting rid of their police department. What's going to happen then?
IBM, I love hearing you in this podcast because every so often you have these like pearls of wisdom, and it's really nice to hear your perspective whenever I listen to this podcast. Obviously, this is really close to your heart and really hits home for you, and I can see you're very passionate about it. So I really liked hearing that perspective. I think, though, I have a lot of friends who use that phrase, and I think what they're saying is, I think it's a hyperbole. And there's certainly some people who firmly believe that, like, get rid of the police altogether. But I think most people, the majority, would prefer that instead of abolishing the police force, that they deal specifically with violent crimes, not like traffic stops, not speeding tickets, two neighbors getting into an argument, someone playing loud music, because those are the situations where you don't really need cops for that kind of thing. You need someone who can just mediate a conflict, instead of which is not something that cops are really trained for. If instead we could focus on having them do what they're trained for instead of dealing with these little petty things, I think it would work out so much better for so many people. Because there is nuance to it. There's obviously there are a lot of people who are anti-gun, and they do look to the police for protection because they cannot defend themselves and they don't want to have to do that. So that they're the ones who need the police, not the people who are, um, for petty things like shoplifting. That's not what we need the police for. We need it for the people who actually need help. That's kind of the perspective that I've been seeing a lot of people saying, and that's certainly a very limited point of view just from the circle of people that I surround myself with. But yeah, I that was a very touching poem from that dispatcher.
It scares me that it's coming close, and it's something that has been talked about here locally in Richmond as well. They are tired of dealing with the constant violence towards the police, so much so that people have actually outed their neighbors who happen to be police officers, given out their locations to these mobs. So these protesters go to the officers' homes, threaten their families when they're off duty. There's no sense in that. Absolutely none. And I, as a former officer, it was tough for me to walk anywhere and go inside of a store just so I could get a cup of coffee, and I've got the whole store just staring at me. I hated it. I hated my job. I got the hell out of there the moment I was given an opportunity to resign. And I thought I could make a difference that way. But then I ended up just going into EMS, and then I became a dispatcher. Things are different. I'm not in the public eye anymore like that. It's still tough what I have to deal with. And a dispatcher technically, in a way, has it worse than an officer does, because we often have the person on the phone in their last moments, and I'm the one that hears them pass. And you feel helpless sitting in a chair not being able to help someone. And that's just only going to get worse if this actually does happen. Dialuka, I think you were trying to chime in there.
Yes. It was going based off of what Happy was saying earlier. I think there's a lot of different factors going on, and of course, what you've said, IBM, definitely rings true. There's a lot of mistrust in the police right now. The police are there, supposed to be there to protect us, but there are a lot of factors that are happening. For example, the ways in which the courts have ruled in favor of the police, how there's not really actual language, protect and serve, typically within the forces, from what I understand. I apologize, by the way, if my facts are wrong or anything that I'm saying is wrong. I will gladly research any topics in regards to this. But from what I'm seeing currently, as of June 9th of 2020, that basically there's a lot of misconceptions going around, a lot of things being said, a lot of things of defund the police or dismantle the police or something along those lines. I have a feeling those are online efforts to basically sow chaos and dissent, when the actual message originally was reform the police. The idea is that that there has to be something done to watch the watchmen, so to speak, provide independent tribunals, to provide independent investigators, provide more rules in terms of unions and how policing is done, to weed out the bad aspects of police. People don't exactly hate police. They just hate the bad individuals who have caused these things to happen, to have sowed dissent in their communities, who have basically done things like civil asset forfeiture or the assaults, the random assaults on people that we see in those videos, as of that we see in these videos lately. Sorry, but it's the thing is to try to go back to it. I believe that the police are supposed to be there to protect us. I believe that we are all supposed to be here to protect each other, to help each other, among other things. But the problem is that a lot of people are angry because they feel like they're not being protected, that they're being judged without going in front of a court or something along those lines. It's just there's way too many factors for me to go into, but to top it off, I believe that we should all be there for each other. I believe that we should all look into ourselves and find out what is wrong and hurtful, because no one should ever be hurt. No one should ever have to cry in terms of from the injustices that have happened, that these injustices should not exist, and that we should be able to trust each other and believe that someone will be there for us, whether that be police, dispatchers, EMS, firefighters, your neighbors, your friends, whatever. And that's basically, I guess, all I can really think of on it. I do apologize if I went a little over the top there.
Okay. Anybody else want to chime in?
I would like to say a few things, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I really totally support the protest. Like the things that cops in America have done and still do are extreme. Like you can clearly see it from an European point of view. There's a lot of problem with the force, but I think it's possible to go too far in the other direction. That's definitely the thing with the ACAB thing. The all cops are bad / bastards, as Creed. Like the main problem I have with it is that basically the main call for it is to totally disband the police, which is I don't think it's a realistic goal. Every country in the world has police. Even countries that used to have a very weak policing, a very weak police like the United Kingdom, who used to rely on, I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but basically private citizen to report crime, eventually got a police. And what worries me the most is that, it's a few anarchists who are really pushing for it, and I respect their views. I don't agree with them. I'm a bit of a statist myself, but I don't think this is a solution for America to disband the police. Defending it, maybe there's been some budget abuses in some cities. Let's be fair, like militarized equipment and all that stuff. But you can't just get that kind of revenge against the police, like totally dismantle it, because then no one's going to protect you. Like, what's your goal if the police is disbanded? Are you going to rely on militias? Are people going to end up in gated communities? I know it's the really, I won't say hype, but the really popular thing to hate on the police, like totally. And as IBM has said, to do things that are honestly pretty horrible, like openly call them out like they're traitors or people or targets or something. But you have to take a step back and realize that it genuinely is, even if it's a lot of people, these are only bad actors and there's people who are trying to do good. And by trying to push them like that, all you're doing is forcing them to leave the force. Because the people who are bad, they're going to stay, they have weapons, they have a conviction, they're going to fuck things up. But people who really want to reform the police and to go along with your wishes, they're going to leave because you're pushing on them, you're threatening them, both in their job and outside of it. It's not a good way to go. We need American police, because I'm not American myself, needs to be reformed, but it can't be disbanded. And I'll give it back to whoever wants to speak up on that topic.
Yeah,
So,
I think. Oh,
oh,
go ahead.
go. Oh, you can go.
I was just going to say I don't think there's an easy solution anywhere. I think that maybe we'll see some minor reforms for maybe localized policing, um, and that we will keep on seeing abuses of power by some, as you said, bad actors, and that this I don't think this is going to go away. I think it's going to stay in the public mind for a month or two. But there's a underlying it's a problem of American society, not of police. There's an internalized bias, and a lot of people, when put in positions of power, are going to abuse that power. So I think that maybe we'll see some reforms. Uh, I don't know how big they'll be. Um, but yeah, there's no easy solution to any of this.
So I think one of the biggest reforms that could happen in law enforcement is incorporating mandatory training for sensitivity, negotiations, and communications. As somebody who's gone through basic academy and have dealt with the public in the least ideal situations, it is evident to me a lot of officers only paid attention to weapons training, defense tactics, and of course your typical routine paperwork, but none of them know really how to negotiate with somebody who's having a mental break or anything of the sort. These officers, they're all about brute force. They're all about, you will succumb to my authority and you'll do as I say. And that's all over the place. I will acknowledge, and I do, that there are officers that should not be wearing a badge, that should not be enforcing the rules when they themselves break them constantly. I got the hell out because of that. There was so much corruption. But I think one of the biggest things that could happen is that these departments wise up and they start making it mandatory that they need to have conditioning, training incorporated in the academy that makes these people interact with people. These officers interact with people who have issues, that are going through a tough time, because 95, I would even argue to say about 99% of all interactions with law enforcement are with somebody who is going through one of the toughest things they've ever dealt with. And if the officer is insensitive to their needs, the person is going to feel like they're being cast aside, ignored, and thwarted, basically attacked, if you will. And it's very evident that there are a lot of departments that focus solely on defending the officer, not the public. And there's nothing that really I could have done where I was. I was just a peon. But looking at it now, it's even in the video. I'm not going to say the video, but even in the video that we all have most likely watched, the officer is like, just doesn't give a shit about anyone else. And there was another video of an innocent man that got shot by police, and the officers that were supporting the officer that pulled the trigger were basically saying, "It's all right, man. At least you're alive. That's all that matters." What? You just shot and killed an innocent man. It's not okay. It doesn't matter if the officer's still alive. You killed someone. You dumb fuck. You pull the trigger first and ask questions later. You should have never, ever drawn your weapon. Dumbass. And that's why I got the hell out, because I I didn't want to come close to that ever. But anyway, we're running out of time.
I'm curious, IBM, I have a question for you. How many hours is like the police training?
Well, in terms of hours, I'm not really sure, but as far as training for VSP, it was a year.
A year. Okay.
Yes,
I was just
about
curious.
6 months of physical agility tests where we did, of course, basic academy, basic training, PT. Had to go through agility tests, strength, weapons training, EVOC, which is emergency vehicle operations course, all that kind of stuff. Get that out of the way, and then 6 more months of like classwork, learning the laws and all that stuff. You basically become a dropout lawyer, if you will. And none of that incorporates being taught how to communicate with the public. Not one bit.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that perspective. I think communication is essential to any situation where you're dealing with, especially someone who is upset and, as you said, going through one of the toughest times in their life. So, yeah, I have to agree with that.
All right.
Just Salog, do you want to speak up?
Okay, because I gotta move this on because we're behind schedule. Sleepy, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Nope.
Okay. Well, if that case, I'd like to move to closing thoughts. We've had a very productive hour talking about this important issue of race in the fandom, as well as other things like what leads people to go down this path of radicalization, the role of police in communities, and some other topics. So, if anyone has any closing thoughts they'd like to give, go ahead. So I'll go ahead and give a closing thought so we can end this. So I am both shocked, I am both humbled, and I'm also angry. I am shocked that people would take this opportunity to express racist sentiment towards people of color, also towards white people as well. I am amazed that we've all come together mostly under the guise of an end to police brutality, under the banner of reform. But at the same time, I'm angry. I'm angry that it has taken the death of another black man at the hands of excessive force to finally, once again, get the conversation moving in America. I am angry that, once again, glaring lines along racial and economic lines are being exposed, and in some cases taken advantage of by those in power for their own needs, their own agenda, for an election coming up in a couple of months. I am dismayed at that. I'm disheartened, but I'm also hopeful that we are headed in a positive direction. I think now is the time that we will see some substantive changes to how police operate. I don't know if the correct answer is reform, if it is defunding or dismantling. I don't know the answer. Rather, I do know the answer, but it's not for me to decide. It's for you all to listen to the arguments and make up your mind. Because the answer is not sitting around doing nothing, burying our heads in the sand and saying, well, you know what, it's going to happen again. It's just America. We do this every time there is a shooting in this country. We bury our heads in the sand and say thoughts and prayers. Oh, well, it's America. It's going to happen. We can't do this with race. This is different. This is a multicultural republic founded along the principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal. In theory, we're all created equal in this country, and we're all supposed to be treated equal in this country, but we're not. Black Lives Matter is not anti-white. It is not about we hate white people. It is holding police accountable. It has never been, gosh, I hate white people. It has never been that. People who say it is that, they're dishonest. They have an agenda. Don't fall for that. Please don't. If you want to make a change, protest, march, join the action, donate to causes that will affect change. And while I'm on the subject, you may not agree with what IBM has said, or I have said, or anybody else has said, but I would hope that you listen, open your mind, and at least critically think. Because we can all sit here, argue till we're blue in the face, but if we're not at least giving some thought to an idea that we don't like, or an idea that may make us uncomfortable, however, small it is, then we're no better than the people who just bury their heads in the sand and say, oh, it's America. This is America. It is what it is. So don't do that. Listen to what IBM has said. Listen to what I have said, what Lifty, Happy, Dialuca, Dylan, and Sleepy have said. Come with an open mind. Come with an open heart. And leave your comments below. I would love to read them. Be there on YouTube or on Twitter. So with that in mind, I would like to thank you all for listening to this important roundtable discussion on race and in the furry fandom. I'd like to thank Dialuca, Dylan, Happy, IBM, Lifty, and Sleepy for participating. My name is Silox. Thank you for tuning in to Furry Frequencies, and we are signing off.